Floor covering, we believe great floors start with great service. Whether you're looking for a plush carpet, durable LVP, timeless hardwood, stylish laminate, or beautiful tile, including custom tile showers, we'll help you find the perfect fit. No pressure, no pushy sales tactics, just honest guidance from a team that listens. DIY Weekend Warrior, we've got the products and advice to set you up for success. Iowa Floor Covering, floors you'll love from people you can trust.
Iowa Floor Covering proudly sponsoring football coverage around the clock here from the Hawkeye of the Storm, as I'm joined by former Hawkeye assistant coach Don Patterson as we wrap up Iowa football's 2026 spring period. Once again, we've done these shows, I don't know how many times, Don. It's just great having football to watch, even if it is in a practice form and kind of your minor league scrimmaging of sorts. But good to see you again. It's been a while. You have been busy with, I'm sure, golf here in the early starts of spring. Have you been out in the course?
I haven't.
Finkbine's closed down.
I haven't picked up a club yet.
You haven't picked up a club yet?
No, not proud of that.
Okay. Well, I know you enjoyed the March Madness run, and so that took a while to get through. It was a great month of March to be able to enjoy that. I know the women's season ended a little earlier than people wanted it to, but you and I haven't talked on the show about the men's finish. I guess just briefly before we get into the football, which is what everybody's here to listen to, I guess just your reaction to what Ben McCollum was able to accomplish in March in year one.
Well, I don't think anyone would imagine that we could have done better than what we did. It was kind of the basketball division of Indiana in football. I realized we didn't win the national title like Indiana did. That was year two, incidentally, for Indiana, right? So maybe next year. Exactly. It's not very realistic, of course, but to make it to the Elite Eight is a great accomplishment. Ben's an outstanding coach. I feel good about everything connected with men's basketball. He must have good assistants. I don't know those guys so well. I don't know Ben well either, but to me, it's all about culture. I think we have the right culture. Those players really believed in Ben and his coaches. And if they didn't, in so many cases, they wouldn't have left Drake to come to Iowa, maybe simply because they weren't sure they were going to play in the Big Ten. Well, obviously, Ben had still that kind of confidence in those young men, and they represented very, very well. Fun to watch them. I enjoy any coach that gives you the impression that he might out-coach the opposition, and Ben gives you that feeling a lot.
And he went up against some really good coaches this year, but I don't recall a game where I sat there, and maybe this is fool's gold confidence, but I don't remember a game sitting there thinking, I fear Iowa's going to get out coached.
Right.
And that, he, even early in the year, he went up against, Richard Pitino at Xavier, and he went up against Izzo really early in non-conference play. And he went up against TJ Otzelberger, who's done a phenomenal job at Iowa State. But I think there's a sense of confidence around the program. And then, of course, you win big in March, and it just changes everything. Of course, just a few minutes short of a Final Four, which is insane.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess we can take pride in the fact that we had to be eliminated by another Big Ten powerhouse.
And then the Big Ten won a national championship.
Yeah. And
although I don't like Michigan.
How about this? National championship in football, men's basketball, and women's basketball.
All different programs,
Three
all
different
schools. So, well, Don, again, thank you for being here. What a beautiful day to outside to be watching Iowa football's final spring practice. I mean, a few of the media people in the East stands today were just talking about how we've had such – actually, Noah Shannon came over and was chatting it up with Tom Kakert, who was sitting next to me, and he made the comment, we sometimes have the dreary, wet weather, windy, cold. You just never know what you're going to get in late April. And it's been stormy across the state of Iowa here in the last couple of weeks, but we got a warm up today and just not much wind, a lot of sunshine, a pretty favorable day for offense.
And there were a lot of people there to watch, which is good to see. Enthusiasm is high for all of our sports, I think. And nothing to be upset about right now about our athletics. I think we're doing really well and have a lot to be proud of.
All right, let's get right into it. We're going to look at this position by position and just see what we can gather from what we saw today. And folks, if you're interested in calling in, you certainly can do that. I threw the link to join the show up in the description. I'll also throw it up in the live chat. I guess it's up there. Yeah, it's up there in the live chat as well. You can also call our phone line 515-635-1601 as we discuss this together. But what I want to start with is what I'm always most, the most pressing subject when I walk into Kinnick Stadium on that final Saturday of the spring practice period. I want to know who's in street clothes. Yeah. And here is what I called my unofficial out list for Iowa today. And I'm going to share my screen so people can see it. This is the tweet that I sent out toward the end of practice. And I wanted to confirm all of this before, as best I can, before let's get this. Maybe we are going to have to just talk about it. Okay, here we go. We got it here. So this is my unofficial out list for today's final spring practice. And I know what people are going to say out of the jump. They're going to say, well, it's a huge list. And I'll scroll down here. But we'll start with offense. The guys that were not participating today, either due to injury or precautionary. Most of these were injury. They're still injuries, right? But they're precautionary situations where guys might be able to play through if we were talking about an actual game. Jared Bowie, Tony Diaz, Evan James, Terrence Smith, DeAndre Smith, Alex Eichmann, all at receiver. At running back, Brevin Dahl was the only back that was out. Addison Estringa still being held out. Precautionary was what Tom Kakert and I were talking about. Tom has gotten some info on that it sounds like he's pretty much ready to go, but they're being careful with him. Eli Johnson was out today as well. Offensive line, Michael Myslinski. I'm assuming he's physically ready to go, but the NCAA, they're still trying to get the 6th year for him.
Right.
And so he's being held out. Cannon Leonard was in street clothes. Will Nolan, I didn't see Will. I'm assuming he was somewhere. I did not see him. He's like the only guy besides someone I'm going to mention here in a second ago that I asked Kirk about Will Nolan's one offensive lineman I didn't even spot on the sidelines. And then on the defensive side, Jalen Watson at corner. He's going to be a really important part of that defense from Phil Parker's group. Ronnie Hill at linebacker, Carson Cooney and Preston Reese, along with Julian Manson, son of former Iowa quarterback Jason Manson, who's on staff, and then Bryce Hawthorne, who I think is their top interior guy on defense, Bryce Stevenson, the Holy Cross transfer, and backup kicker Caden Boer. So I read a couple of the responses in our on this Twitter post, and some of the people that, came right out and said, hey, that's a lot of people, especially a receiver. I guess let's start there. How concerned are you that Iowa was down 5, make it 6 receivers for this final period? And it's just a snapshot of what's happened over the last few weeks, but how concerning is that to you?
Not very concerning at all. I say that in part because I don't know how many practices they all missed. Today was number 15, of course. But I do know this as an example. I was at Tuesday's practice, and I was looking for number 14. I don't even know for sure he's going to wear number 14 for us. Is Tony in 14?
Yeah, he is.
I Tony Diaz. His old number.
Yep.
But after practice, one of the coaches said, hey, Coach, you need to meet this guy. It was Tony. And I said, Tony, I was looking for you out on the practice field, but I never saw you. And he said, yeah, Coach, they helped me out today. And then another player said, are you going to be able to go on Thursday? And he said, yes, I think so. I think they're going to let me go on Thursday. Well, they didn't. They let me go on Saturday either, but that tells me if there was a game to play today, yep, I'm betting that Tony would have been sure I'm out there playing. So minor injury. And the beauty of holding a guy out is it means he's not injured on practice 15. And obviously somebody that's got a big injury today, that's the shortest possible recovery time from spring ball to fall ball is to be injured on this date. So I don't know how anybody. I don't
think there was anybody that got dinged up today.
One guy they at least consulted about him, but I think he was okay too. So I am excited about Tony after meeting him. We'll just comment on this because you always wonder. And of course, as you know, Tony's from Texas, and I reminded him I was from Texas. But it's a big state. I'm a long way from Tony's hometown.
From Rio Grande.
Yeah. But I simply left him with this message. I said, Tony, what matters is not where you start, but where you finish. And I said, my guess is coming out of high school, you were hoping to play for UT, or hoping to play for A&M. And for whatever reason, it didn't happen. But I do believe you made the best of your situation these past 2 years. Now, as a result, you are on a big stage. And everybody's going to have a chance to watch you play in the fall, provided you take care of your business between now and then. So I'm excited about what you're going to do in the fall, because I've already heard from your teammates and from some coaches that you're going to be a wonderful addition to our receiving corps. And I'm excited about what he can do, because I think he brings a lot to the table, as they say. Looks to me like we got a really good one without giving up on the farm. And they had to pay a fortune for him, I assume.
Yeah.
I don't know that, but I assume that.
Yeah, and I've heard great things from about him, and heard some positive things about Evan James. He's a smaller receiver in a sense that I think he's listed at 170, and that might be a little generous. But he's a bit of I struggle to use the term Swiss Army knife because that term is way overused. Tyrone Tracy was a Swiss Army knife. The kid that Terrell Washington, who's now at New Mexico State, he's a Swiss Army knife.
How about Gil?
Gildon wasn't you. I'm thinking of Evan James as someone who's probably going to be able to be used behind the line of scrimmage a little bit more than maybe a Jacob Gill was. I think he's got the speed. I don't know that he has. I mean, I'll be curious to get your perspective on this because Rondell Moore is a great example. What a tragic end to his life here earlier this year, but he was a phenomenal Big Ten player who was really undersized. Now he had some muscle mass, right, for his small body, and Evan James probably has to develop in the summer, and this can be an important couple of months for him. But
Rondell was a modern day version of Tim Dwight.
So smaller guys can, and Caden Weegan for that matter. They need more production offensively from Evan James than they got from Caden Weegan offensively.
Yep.
So it doesn't mean it's going to happen right away, but Evan James is really productive at Furman. Tony Diaz was really productive at Texas Rio Grande Valley. And we're going to go through some other transfers that Iowa added from the FCS ranks, but those are not two powerhouses.
Right.
You coached in the FCS. In fact, you guys, you won the Gateway, twice when you were at Western.
Right.
And it was best conference in the country.
Remains the best conference. Just change the name, but still the best conference.
So I guess my question is, when you saw, we talked a little bit about it, probably you and I privately. I don't think we've ever talked about it on the air, but when you saw how Iowa was approaching the portal this time around, they got less high major guys. They got a couple, but they really went for productive low major guys that had lots of eligibility left. Tony Diaz, Evan James. Cody Haddad maybe is an exception to that rule because he was at Ohio State, but he's got a lot of eligibility in front of him. They got the kid from Elon, Kamari Brown, who's got 2 years. He's going to play on offense. Just go down the list. They got a couple of kids from JMU. They got a kid from they got Xavier. They got Oleg Baju, the big dude, number 88, who's going to play on the defensive side and help them on the interior. Xavier Townsend. And they got a lot of players, Xavier Styles. See, I'm breaking off the rust here, Don, in April for my football knowledge. But what was your reaction to their approach? Because it seemed to be very directed this time around.
Well, I've said this before, Cory, and I know you understand this to be a valid approach. You need to be a bargain shopper. You need to find players that are more valuable than what you have to pay. Because there's a limited amount of money that's available. That even applies to whether a few people that almost have unlimited resources, but not many. Iowa certainly doesn't have unlimited resources. So you got to find the good bargains out there. And I'll remind people, Indiana found a few good bargains too, a couple of years ago and even last year. And that worked out really well. It just reinforces, just because you played at JMU, doesn't mean you can't play in the Big Ten for the Big Ten champions. I remember one time I had a linebacker named Eddie Hartwell, and his senior year I made the statement, he's better than any linebacker in the Big Ten this year. That's how good he was. And he played in the NFL effectively to prove all that. I remember that year when I was in Buffalo. Buffalo, of course, is a mid-major, as they call it. We go to Ohio State, and that day, I said after the game, there's not a single Ohio State fan that would not admit the best player that played on the field today in today's game was playing not for Ohio State, playing for Buffalo. His name you're familiar with, Khalil Mack. And Khalil Mack's still playing. He's had a serious injury now. He's not quite the same that he was, but he's still good enough to play in the NFL. And of course, played at a really high level in his early years after college. So they're out there. You just got to find them. And you got to have something to sell. You got to have opportunity to begin with. You can convince them they got a good opportunity, and they already know if they do their homework. You got a great culture at Iowa because it really is the right kind of culture. Some schools have it, some schools don't. But Iowa very definitely does. Great credit to Kirk for that. Great credit to the assistant coaches, but great credit to the players that are part of that culture because they embrace their teammates. And it really is a big family. That makes a difference.
And LJ Phillips is another guy, young running back that played at South Dakota last year and had almost 2,000 yards last year. And I thought that was the biggest surprise to me, like the fact that they were able to land him with Kamari Moulton theoretically being a workhorse this year or in line for that type of a role. How much did that surprise you?
A little bit, certainly. But I made this comment when I heard about his stats. If you can pile up that many yards in the best FCS conference in the country, then I promise you, you're going to come back.
Yeah.
You're a back that can compete very well in the Big Ten.
London Phillips Jr., and he was out there today. I thought the tailbacks looked pretty good. Again, I defer to you on most of these because besides, looking at what the success rate of the kicking game was and how much hang time the punters got and how accurate the quarterback seemed to throw. I mean, it's hard for me as somebody on the sidelines, and I think anybody that's being objective to say, oh, this really stood out, this really stood out. What stood out to you? I thought that the running game looked good. Quarterbacks looked fine. We can get into that a little bit more. Was there anything specific that you saw that popped?
Well, just general impressions. I thought today our pass rush was better than our pass protection. Quarterbacks run into duress too much, too much of the time. So I thought that was one thing. And what's hard to put a tag on is how much of that is to the credit of the D-line, the pass rush in general, mostly D-line rush, or how much is that to the blame of the O-line? A little bit of both, I think. But I thought our quarterbacks got a lot of practice today throwing under pressure because I think the pass rush was stronger than our pass protection was reliable.
Anybody specific on either side of the ball that you saw that kind of turned your head that maybe you had heard about earlier in the spring or you've seen in person attending some of these practices? Anybody, maybe let's start with the offensive side.
Well, I was sitting with a friend and we were talking the whole time, and I didn't make any notes this year. Normally I'll make notes, but this year I didn't because I wanted to be sure to give my friend a lot of time as we sat and visited. But I still watched, and of course I'm mentally making a point of remembering certain things from the scrimmage, but mostly I just have general impressions. I thought early on the quarterbacks, a little frustrating. And there were situations where you get into contested passes. I'm talking about balls that were generally thrown down the field. My frustration, and we overthrew a lot of those early in the practice. But as the practice went on, it seemed like we got a little bit better about giving it. You hear that phrase, 50-50 balls. I do recall there were times when Coach Fry would say to the quarterback, and maybe to me too, he would say, I just want to remind you, this quarterback we're going against on Saturday doesn't have great hands. So to the quarterback, he would say, just a reminder, even if he's covered, if it's this particular receiver that we have versus that quarterback that doesn't judge the ball nearly as well, put it up. Put it up and give that guy a chance to high point the ball, our guy, and win those 50-50 balls. Today, it seemed like we had no confidence in our ability to win those, because in general, when I was well covered, the ball was simply sailed over his head.
Yep.
There's no chance to catch it. Later in the scrimmage, as time went on, we put a little more air into the ball and gave our receivers a chance to win that contested catch, and they did. And that was good to see because it's all about matchups. Obviously, they know their teammates pretty well, even on defense. And if they felt good about the matchup, as the practice went on, they gave our receivers a better chance to win that 50-50 ball. And that was good to see because I thought early on we didn't do a very good job of that. I wouldn't be surprised if Tim might have even made a comment to him about it. Give our guys a chance. Put the ball up so we have a chance to win that contested catch.
Yeah, I see the comment here in the chat from we don't normally take nominations, but I think Jarrett here has a pretty good take that Jackson, and I probably not going to be great with his last name. Is it Nave? The kid from is it Iowa Western?
Show me a jersey number.
He is 83, I believe. Yes, 83.
Yeah, I remember seeing him.
He had a really impressive catch from Hank Brown. And so like I said, we don't normally take nominations for this award, but I guess we'll do it today. I thought he was really impressive for a kid maybe who, like Weegan a couple of years ago, sort of an unknown, didn't play. I don't think, maybe got in once or twice last year for the Hawks. He's transferring in from a community, from a JUCO, and it was off a Hank Brown throw, and I thought his arm looked marginally better than Heklinski's today. But that was an impressive play. And KJ Parker, to his own, he had a nice sideline reception along that east side.
I'm going to know it. That was KJ Parker. Is he one or two? I can't remember.
One. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I wasn't sure that he was still with us, but now I'm glad to know that. One of my frustrations today, something for the athletic department to think about, we needed somebody in the press box announcing players on the field, pointing out who carried the ball or great reception by so-and-so.
Yeah, what was with that? I don't know
know.
why that's not doable when you do it for games. Why can't you do it for
We
practice?
didn't do our fans any favor tonight, and that we didn't identify, as well as we might have, what was going on in terms of individual players. And so I'd say defensive player of the day, number 84, I don't even know who he is.
Joseph Anderson. I know what you're going to go to here.
Wow, nice play.
Yeah. Took it back for a touchdown.
Yeah. He actually did a good job just getting his hands on it, and then did a good job adjusting the ball in the air, and then understood how to finish.
Right.
Really a wonderful, very athletic play. And I'm assuming he's a young guy because I wasn't sure who he was. How old is he?
He is. This is, I believe, his third year.
Okay.
He's a redshirt sophomore, and he's a guy I asked. Who did I talk to about it? I believe I talked to Bryce Hawthorne after the practice. We got some availability with some players, and we got availability with Kirk. And I asked Bryce Hawthorne about the maturation of that group. Because remember, a couple of years ago, Don, it was that recruiting class of Drew Campbell, Jack's little brother, Joseph Anderson, Devin Kennedy out of Arizona, and Chima Chinnick out of Plano.
Mm-hmm.
And it was that group. And I'm like, man, there's a lot of raw potential there. And this is typically the time here going into year 3 where it's like you expect those guys to start coming along and maybe being able to contribute. None of them have really to this point on defense. Right. So that's maybe a good sign to see Joseph make a play. And I think Bryce Hawthorne specifically mentioned Devin Kennedy as standing out this spring.
That's good to know. Very good to know. Here's another example. Tuesday's practice again. After the practice, this young man was walking out off the practice field, I should say, into the indoor. And I was standing there, and I saw white jersey number 45, and I thought, I don't know who that is.
Big kid.
Yeah.
Freshman.
And he introduced himself, and I don't even recall his name.
Jack Janda.
Yeah, but what did impress me, I haven't forgotten that jersey number.
Yeah.
Because I said, tell me about yourself. And he said, well, Coach, I'm a first-term player. I just got here this semester. And I said, you're telling me that last fall you were playing high school football? He said, yes, I was, Coach. And I said, well, you're going to shock me if you don't tell me that you didn't have a fall birthday. And I said, nobody can look like you at the age of 17.
Does he have a fall birthday?
And later he said, my birthday's in September. I said, that's what I thought. You look like to me, you're 18 going on 21.
Yeah.
He's an impressive young man. I don't know how well he played today, but he understands how you need to look. It helps him look that way because it only comes through a lot of work.
So maybe a guy, if you're looking for a guy that's sort of off the radar, Jack Janda, if I'm pronouncing his name correctly, Detroit hometown kid.
Yeah, that's only based on how he looks. He didn't mention to me that he was from Michigan, and I said, "Well, I'm guessing that we're very lucky to have you on this team because it looks to me, I haven't seen any video, but it's not hard for me to imagine in a couple of years you're going to be able to line up and play against anyone in this league." And I think that's a realistic goal for him.
Yeah, I think he could probably physically he's got some guys are just not big enough when they get to Iowa to play in year 1, right? There's just too much weight gain, muscle mass that you got to put on.
I'll give you an example of a player years ago that sticks in my mind. He's a guy that came out of Wisconsin years ago, and he played a lot as a young player. His name was Mark Morris. And if you're a Bear fan, you remember that he started for the Bears in their Super Bowl championship years. Mark Morris was a little mature beyond his years, a little bit like our guy number 45, Jack Janda.
Yeah.
So those are the guys that excite me. I didn't know anything about him, but he certainly passed the look test. And I realized that didn't necessarily equate to playing beyond your years. But that certainly is a great place to start. Is to look like you're ready to go on the field and play. He does.
So Big Grove's big play of the game / big play of the day. Technically, it's not a spring game. It's one of my little issues with Iowa's. Yeah. I wish they actually did a spring game like other programs, although less are doing it now. regardless, Jackson Nave's sideline reception and the throw from quarterback Hank Brown. And that's a good segue into the quarterback position, Don. Comparing Hecklinski, comparing Hank Brown. For people that don't know your credentials, you coach quarterbacks for a long time.
Right.
So you know the little things to watch for. My observations, and you can critique my observations as well. I thought Hank looked like he had the more fluid motion. He looks like he's got the better arm overall. I think that narrative that Hecklinski is a gamer and maybe a gunslinger, a risk taker, I saw that today to an extent, whereas Hank Brown seems to have a more fluid throw. Honestly, if you had to ask me who I think will start week 1, at this point, I'd say Hank Brown. It's way too early to make that call, but I say that because of Kirk Ferentz's past and who he would normally defer to. If they have a 50-50 call between a guy who's less of a risk taker, they're going to go with that game manager style quarterback, even if he's not mobile. That's my take. What were your takeaways from watching Heck and Hank go at it today?
Well, I've said before, Cory, and mentioned this on your show, I'm concerned that we have no quarterback in our team that's proven much of anything on game day.
Yep. It's been a concern of mine since December.
Yeah. They're very unproven. And I know some people would say, well, my gosh, how much practice time do you need before you're ready to go out and play well? Well, I think most people that played that position would tell you it's a little bit different in the fall when 100,000 people show up to watch, or even 70,000 people show up to watch. And I'm not wearing a gold jersey anymore. I'm wearing our team jersey. If those other guys can rip me apart, they're going to try to do it. So I'm not protected out here on Saturday in the fall. So my teammates are going to protect me, but you know what I mean. You're subject to hard hits, said that way. So one parameter that never changes, it seems, through all these years, Cory, I guarantee you, any prediction model I've ever come up with, one of the parameters that's always part of that model is going to be turnover margin, as you know. That's always a very valuable edge to have on your side, is to win a game on turnovers. And that ties into the fact you got to have a quarterback, not to mention just a quarterback. Same thing applies to that running back who's going to carry it 20 or 25 times. You got to have guys on the field that understand it's critical that we protect the ball. And I'm not going to throw the ball up and risk turning the ball over. I'm going to have great pocket presence, and I'm going to avoid being strip sacked in the backfield. I'm going to have two hands on the ball as long as I can, and only when I'm ready to throw does my left hand come off the football. If I'm in my pocket looking for where to go, I got two hands on that football.
Yep. You
don't go around wagging it around with one hand. That's how the ball comes out. So I am a little concerned that gunslinger tag is on Jeremy, and I can see that from watching practice some in the past. I would say he needs to value the ball. He needs to demonstrate that he can value the ball a little bit more than what he has.
Somebody's trying to get a hold of you, Don.
Yeah. My apologies.
No, you're fine. Yeah, there were a couple of throws today. First of all, I want to say I thought early in the practice, both guys had some really nice shots. I mean, really nice throws to the end zone. We mentioned the Hank Brown throw to Nave, the one along the sideline to KJ Parker. I believe that was Hecklinski. But don't quote me on it. But then I thought as the practice went on, you saw, especially out of Hecklinski, a few plays where it's like he threw one where he's literally falling backwards off his back foot. You know the play I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And I just winced when I saw it, and it didn't end up in an interception. But those are never play. Like, that's the type of Pat Mahomes play where if he completes it, you're like, it's Pat Mahomes. But most guys aren't able to do that. And so you don't encourage anybody to throw like that, right?
Right. And here's the truth. Today, of course, they're protecting the quarterback. And maybe the plays you're talking about, he was under pressure.
Yep.
But the difference is if you're under pressure in the fall, in that scenario, you're barely getting the ball out as it is, even when you're protected. That means in a game situation, you might very well be hit before you release the ball. And now you got a dying quail up there, and you got defenders. If they're playing zone defense, there's 11 sets of eyes all in that football. I'll even begrudgingly say maybe not the D linemen, but those other 7 sets of eyes, linebackers and DBs, their eyes are all on the ball. If the ball's up in the air, then they're all taught, of course, to attack the ball. And so if the ball's tipped, or if you're hit as you throw, and it's fluttering up in space, the odds are in favor of the defense ending up with the ball on those plays. And obviously not nearly as many eyes on offense are on the ball when the ball's thrown. Defense has more eyes, provided they're in zone coverage. And of course, that's part of the key to our success with interceptions. We play a lot of zone defense. If the ball's tipped up in the air or thrown as a dying quail, as I call it, you can bet our defense got a great chance to get in the football.
We just got breaking news. Carson Shire, former Iowa linebacker, has been selected in the NFL draft 6th round. We're going to recap some of these others in just a second, but congratulations to Carson, who's an Iowa Falls native. And yeah, man, so far this has been an impressive draft for Hawkeye fans. I mean,
and one reason Carson went is because of his value on specialty teams that he demonstrated even last year and the year before.
Yeah.
He has been a really good ST performer in his early years. And of course, recent history he's played on defense a lot. And now, one reason they're going to spend a 6th round pick on him is he's going to be a valuable commodity on the kicking units. You bet on that.
So let's kind of break away from the spring practice for a second and recap what's happened so far in the draft. We still have another round and a half to go, but you have Logan Jones come off the board first in the 2nd round. He goes to the Steelers. Excuse me. You have Caden Weegan in the 4th. Dunker in the 3rd. I don't have this in front of me right now, but right, Dunker in the 3rd.
Yes.
To the Steelers.
Steelers.
You have. Oh no, I'm sorry. I'm messing that up. Not Dunker and Jones to the Steelers.
No, Jones went to the Bears.
Jones to the Bears. Thank you. Jones to the Bears at center. Dunker to the Steelers. Weegan to the Steelers today in the 4th round, which he was drafted higher than most people expected.
Yep.
Bo Stevens, former Iowa guard, who I know you have a lot of respect for, it ended up with the Seahawks in the 5th round, and now Carson Shire to the Cardinals in the 6th. So obviously there's still guys on the board. Xavier Wampa, Aaron Graves, Mark Gronowski, Drew Stevens would even be out there. But, man, that's a pretty successful draft class to this point.
Yes, it is. And we also know, I used to tell my guys, if they weren't drafted and ended up going as a free agent, the beauty of free agency, maybe the average free agent has not one team to sign with, but has a choice among 2, 3, or even 4 teams to sign with. And now you get to pick the opportunity that's maybe best for you versus being drafted late and maybe not going to the place that would offer you the best opportunity.
Folks, we are here today, due to Iowa floor covering. You see the logo up in the top right corner of the screen. Also, Big Grove Brewery. Every time I go by Big Grove, I think of our last show there and what a great time we've had at all of our shows. We've done shows at the Des Moines store. We've done shows at the Iowa City store as well as Omaha. It's always a fun time at Big Grove, and it's the official watch party headquarters of the Hawkeyes. Get set for any sporting event you have that you're excited to watch this summer, whether it be the NBA playoffs, golf. We got Kirk Ferentz brought up, hey, after 4th of July weekend, he's getting into baseball mode. I guess he made a comment about the NBA today, which I was like, you watch the NBA? Maybe he was tongue-in-cheek, but he said something about, we got NBA playoffs before I start watching baseball. So, okay, I didn't know that, Kirk. That surprises me, but regardless, Big Grove Brewery is the place to be for great food, great beer, and a great time. Enjoy their Easy Eddie. It's their easiest of IPAs. Visit biggrove.com to learn more. We're here talking about Iowa football and not just the spring practice today, but the NFL draft. And we'd be remiss if we didn't bring up something that became news, a week and a half ago. Haven't talked about it a lot on this channel. We talked about it on our sister channel with Mark Rogers here about a week ago. But the NCAA, 3 years after Iowa allegedly committed an infraction, self-reported that infraction where they contacted Cade McNamara early when he was not officially in the portal yet. He had lost the job at Michigan at quarterback. Iowa had reason to believe he was going to enter the portal. There was some contact, impermissible contact. We call that tampering in layman's terms. And Iowa actually, they self-reported. Kirk Ferentz took a suspension. My understanding is they also said, okay, we'll take a fine. 3 years later, the NCAA comes back and says, we're going to vacate all those wins because Cade McNamara was ineligible when he played that season. I'm just curious to get your takeaways because you were a longtime coach for various programs that were governed by the NCAA. What is your response to that discipline?
Well, the first that comes to mind for me, misery loves company. And I have to wonder, it's just interesting to me with all the negative press that Michigan has gotten, and deservedly gotten, for Spygate, if you will, for lack of a better term. You know, we're not just imagining that happened. It did happen. That's a serious offense. And to be honest with you, I think there's all kinds of contact that happens that nobody really makes a big deal about. And I suspect one reason it's been a big deal is because Michigan was the other party. And Michigan, misery loves company. Michigan is thinking, well, if we're going to be having to go through hard times, we're going to.
But they didn't get any wins vacated. Michigan never got wins vacated.
There's another reason. How unfair is that?
That's stupid. It's just the rule book is messed up.
Yeah.
We're going to call this player ineligible, so we have to vacate wins. And yet this team is openly cheating on game day, and their coaches are involved in this massive cheating scandal. And yet they can retain all these wins, including championships. It's just insane to me.
Yeah. Yeah, it really bothers me too.
And I'm not, look, if Iowa, here's my issue. It's not even the fact that Iowa got wins vacated.
Mm-hmm.
It's the fact that they got wins vacated while tampering is rampant. The NCAA is making no real attempt to stop it. They don't care. And Iowa self-reported this. So what are we doing? Are we trying to make an example out of Iowa? And oh, by the way, what took 3 years?
Right.
Why did this take 3 years? What was there to investigate?
I mean,
just bizarre, very bizarre.
Yeah, really, it's a whole lot about nothing.
Yeah. So I don't really know how that affects. Have you ever been part of a team where you got wins vacated?
No, can't remember that ever happening. So one obvious question that people brought up, does that mean Kirk is short of the record? And the answer, I'm pretty sure, is no, because the record was broken early season last year, right?
I believe you're correct. Yeah.
I think he's still got more wins already, even after those vacated wins. He's still got the most wins.
One quick note while I'm talking about this. I know we're kind of hopping all over the place, folks, but this is an Iowa football spring practice show. I've heard from a lot of people, especially with the transfer portal window recently closing for men's and women's basketball. I hear this all the time. You hear it. I'm sure you, in a sense, feel it. People say, I hate the transfer portal. It's ruining the sport. And I don't know that I think that's a bit of an extreme take. I still love the sport of college football. I know you love college football. But I just want to make something very clear. If you're a Hawkeye football fan and you love how Kirk operates, then you need to acknowledge that there's a lot of transfers on this roster. I mean, I was running through, I have them all marked. Let me read the players off of guys who played for other colleges before coming to Iowa. Cody Haddad, Ohio State. Tyler Brown, James Madison. Anthony Hawkins, Villanova. Evan James, Furman. Hank Brown, Auburn. Jeremy Hecklinski, Wake Forest. Tony Diaz, Rio Grande Valley. This is Xavier Stiles. I'm sorry. I'm like Alex Eichmann, wasn't it? Robert Morris. Xavier Stiles was Robert Morris. Ty Hudkins, Purdue. Lyndon Phillips Jr., South Dakota. Eli Ozick, who's probably going to be the starting kicker, North Dakota State. You got Tanner Philpott, who I thought was probably, I didn't see a huge difference between him and Boston Everett, the other kicker from Australia. Philpott was from Simpson. Kamari Brown, Elon. Let's see here. Trent Wilson, James Madison. Jackson Nade, we mentioned him. Iowa Western. Lance Beagley, SMU. Emmanuel Olagbaju, North Dakota. Bryce Stevenson, Holy Cross. Lance Ingold, Northern Illinois. Bryce Hawthorne, South Dakota State. When I read all those players off, does a tear kind of appear in your eye a little bit, Don? Or are you just like, hey, this is the day and age, and if you're going to get transfers, just do it the right way? And I think Iowa does more often than not.
Yeah, I mean, we're just adjusting to the times we're in, and it's unfortunate. I think that here's what's missing out. Part of that, I just got back from Macomb yesterday, and they had a golf outing, and you had guys that were together in this golf outing that were teammates 40 years ago. Well, one reason they're still such dear friends, and they come back from all over the country to return to the school, is because those guys were teammates for 4 or 5 years. Those are lifelong friends. And I just feel it's unfortunate nowadays that the average player would be spending his college years at 2.5 universities or 3.2 universities, whatever, not one. That's the point. So it's unfortunate that you don't have years to build up great relationships, not just with your teammates, but with your coaches.
Yeah.
And that's part of the culture that makes Iowa a special place. And we've adjusted to as we needed to, because we haven't lost many, of course. Typically, the guy that leaves Iowa is a guy that couldn't project that he's going to be able to play as much as he would like to play. So he left, but he reluctantly left. He left because he wanted to be a starter in Division I football, FBS football, and he wasn't quite good enough to do it at Iowa. Well, we don't begrudge him leaving to do it somewhere else, because I've always said this game is not as much fun if you're watching rather than playing. The greatest fun is on the field, not on the bench.
Yeah, Kamari Moulton was asked today, and I'm not ripping on the media member that asked him, but Moulton was asked today if he would prefer to be a workhorse or if he's okay with running back by committee. And I kind of chuckled internally because I'm like, well, what do you think he's going to say? And he's like, well, I'll embrace any role, but yeah, I'd love to be a workhorse. And that's the right answer, right? I mean, I would be a little bit concerned if I heard a running back say, I'd rather be able to kind of come in and out. I mean, you want a guy that's ready for every down.
Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. And the beauty of having more than one back, you heard me say this before, Cory, 2 things are good. One is you never have to play with a tired running back.
Yes.
That's one. Secondly, and maybe even more important, you never have to play with a running back that is even the least bit injured. Because if he's the least bit injured, we shouldn't have him out there, because these other guys it's a coin toss as to who's better than who anyway. It's wonderful if you can have 3 or 4 backs and never have to play a guy that's a little bit dinged up that might be more susceptible to a more serious injury going forward. So let's get him out of the game. Let's hold him out even for a week or 2 if we have to allow him to regain his health. And now let's put him back into action when he's ready to play at the highest level.
Folks, we're going to take a quick break. We've been talking Hawkeye football for the last 45. We probably got another 45 on us. Feel free to chat. We're going to hopefully be joined by someone else who was at the practice today in the Iowa media. We're awaiting Elliot Clough of Iowa's 247 sports site. I know he's covering a basketball tournament, but I kind of asked him last minute to hop on with us, so we'll get Elliot's perspective hopefully as well. And I want to ask Coach about how Iowa replaces Caden Weegan, because the return position was so important for Iowa in some of these games, some of these wins. Even last year, the Michigan State game comes to mind. You don't win that game if it's not for I think, a mistake by Michigan State even kicking to Caden Weegan. But now that Weegan is officially an NFLer, who does Iowa turn to? Zach Lutmer is a guy whose name has not yet been brought up on today's show. So we'll be back talking more football with myself and the guy next to me, Coach Don Patterson. You're watching from the Hawkeye of the Storm. We will be right back. Hawkeye of the Storm has always been built on you, the fans. That's why we're launching a premium Discord server to make your experience and your fandom that much better. This new feature is the most interactive way to connect with us yet. Inside, you'll get direct access to myself, Kyle Spence, and other key contributors. Join exclusive threads on game day, chat with us throughout the week, and be a part of the conversation like never before. Plus, we're rolling out premium perks, including select pregame shows, halftime breakdowns, and other exclusive content throughout the season, throughout the year. We're building this platform together, and we'd love for you to be a part of it. Join our premium Discord service today for just $5 a month or $50 for an entire calendar year. Yes, $50 for 12 months ahead. Simple way to do this, folks. Go to the description of this video, click on the donate link for either PayPal, Venmo, or Cash App, and make your either $5 or $50 donation. Be sure if you're doing the $5 donation that it's on a recurring basis, and be sure you label that donation for Discord. Include your email on there so we can invite you personally to our server. Yes, be a bigger part of the work being done here from the Hawkeye of the Storm. Join our premium Discord server today and interact like never before. Yes, Discord is the place to be. Even during the off season, we are talking Hawkeye football, Iowa women's basketball, Iowa men's basketball all the time. And people like Kashin or myself, Kyle Spence, we're all on there and talking Hawkeye sports and all of the community that makes this show possible. All of you making for a great community. I think we've got about 100 people on there right now. So head on over to Discord. Simple way to do that. Just $50 for a year, and you'll get into the Discord for the next 12 months. I previewed before our breakdown that I wanted to talk the return game, because boy, you're losing maybe the best returner in the history of Iowa football, and that says a lot because you've coached a guy named Tim Dwight who was unbelievable. Guys like Desmond King and Amir Smith-Marset and Cooper DeJean were really, really good in their own right, and that's skipping over a lot of really solid return guys. How do you begin to replace the now Steeler, Caden Weegan?
Well, one of the things I liked about Caden, too, you remember me saying this about him, he plays faster than he tests. And that's kind of hard to explain, but he tested well. But he appears to be faster than what those test results show. And the Steelers are smart enough to know that. And some guys play better than they test, other guys test better than they play. And the simple solution is draft the guys that play really well, not the guys that test really well, because sometimes those guys will break your heart.
Yeah.
So they don't achieve like they hoped.
Is it Lutmer? Is it someone else that we're skipping over? I mean, if you had to ask me, so Brevin Dawes was out today. He was the one tailback that was out. He's dealt with some pretty significant injuries since his senior year of high school, really since his junior year of high school. But I know Zach Lutmer's been at the 4 and new special teams coordinator. Of course, LeVar's not there anymore.
Right.
Is it Polizzi, I think is how you pronounce his last name? Yep. And have you met him?
I don't really know him.
He's pretty new to this. I mean, he's got experience, but he's new to it. He's no LeVar Woods. We're talking about the history. I got to see it to believe it. The production overall from the special teams unit, you got to give LeVar Woods a lot of credit for the success of that unit. A variety of places. They're replacing their kicker. They're replacing their punter. They're replacing their return guys, both kickoff and punt guys. So, man, that's a lot. That's a big job for him at Iowa.
And based on what I know right now, we will perform at a lower level this next fall in all those categories than what we did last fall. So it's a concern.
So Lutmer would be at the top of the list. I'd be curious about KJ Parker's ability to do that. I'm sure they've toyed with it. I'd be curious about Brevin Dahl's ability because of his speed. After that, Braden Jackson, Fred Jackson's kid, he's probably not going to play at tailback unless they go through a bunch of injuries. He'd be a guy like, does he have the speed? Does he have – I know it's not just about speed, right, but he'd be a guy that, I like the idea of using guys maybe that aren't key offensive cogs.
I agree.
So I don't know. Maybe it's a Nevin James, 5'10" or 5'11", 170.
Well, you heard me say in the past, Cory, a game is 3 games within one. It's our offense versus their defense, our defense versus their offense, and kicking game versus the opponent's kicking game. And in almost all cases, you win 2 out of 3 to win the game. The typical win for Iowa in recent years was winning the kicking game, win with our defense versus their offense, and then not do as well with our offense versus their defense. But we won 2 out of 3, and that would generally produce a win. That's how you're able to win. Worst case scenario was 5 first downs against Nebraska. We still won the game. Well, the defense won the day, and the kicking game won the day. And offensively, the best thing we did is we didn't turn the ball over. We were +2 that day. That gave us the win. And as you know, the last time a team with 5 first downs won a football game was 23 years earlier. Think about that. How many FBS games have been played over the past 23 years? Nobody ever won with 5 first downs since 2001.
I was watching the Lakers last night, and the Lakers have won 2 games in this series against the Rockets where they had 20 turnovers in that game. They've done it twice this series. But I get your point.
Yeah.
It's hard to win when you have turnovers, when you can't move the chains, and Iowa's figured out a way to kind of be the oddball there. But, man, it helps having a weapon like a Weegan or a DeJean. And, I mean, I just think it's incredibly important. You either got to figure out who's going to be the next. Is there a better chance of them finding another Weegan/DeJean, or is there a better chance that the passing game comes alive and it actually becomes viable? I think it's that. I actually think it's the latter, and I hate saying that because history doesn't tell us that. But right. I just think it's a hard ass of Chris Polizzi in his first year as the special teams coordinator. Now, I mentioned KJ Parker. I actually thought he was the most impressive receiver as a whole today. A lot of guys down. I mentioned earlier, Jared Bowie, Tony Diaz, Evan James, all those guys out, a few other kids as well. But I thought KJ looked really good. And there was a lot of hype about him last August during fall camp, and it never really materialized. He had, I think, 1 drop today. Other than that, a nice sideline catch, seemed pretty good with his hands. What were your thoughts on number 1?
Yeah, he looked like a polished receiver out there. Some guys struggle to catch the ball. Other guys, it seems to come very naturally for them. And KJ appears to have nice soft hands and good judgment on any ball in flight. That may sound easy, but some guys are not very good at that. Other guys can do it so much better. And it appears that KJ might be one of those guys that's among the better at being able to judge the ball in flight.
Safety's a big question. I mentioned a couple of guys that they brought in, Anthony Hawkins being one. He was an FCS freshman All-American. Xavier Stiles is a kid who maybe isn't a immediate plug and play guy, but someone who might be able to factor in eventually. Tyler Brown might be a plug and play guy. He played for a really good JMU team that made it to the playoff.
Yep.
Lutmer looks like he's going to be moving up. And then who was playing cash today?
I'm not sure, but you heard me say this last fall. One of the guys that routinely impressed you with how he played from one week to the next was Zach Lutmer. He was a very consistent football player and played well almost every last game.
And that's my question, because it sounds like they're moving him up. So someone else is going to, whether it's, I think Phil Parker brought up last week, maybe it's Jalen Watson or somebody moving down. I'd have to go back and watch the tape. It sounds like Buffington's locked into us as of right now. I think he and Montgomery, 33 and 36, are probably your 2 main linebackers, mm-hmm. right?
Mm-hmm.
And then when you're in the traditional 4-3, I don't know who the third guy is. Maybe Van Kekerix or Nolan DeLong is a name that's been brought up a few times. But that's going to be another big storyline. Like, who emerges at the other safety spot, and then who replaces Lutmer and Cash if Lutmer swings up to, I guess he'd be playing free, right?
Yeah.
So any thoughts on on that mixing and matching them? If you trust anybody, you trust Phil to figure it out.
Absolutely. I think those are the kind of things that might not even be solved before September. You can bet they're going to be solved a lot in fall camp. They've been solved to some degree this spring. And of course, that's only 15 total practices. So fall camp will tell us a lot. And even then, the beauty of non-conference, and now you get to find out some guys play really well in front of their teammates, but they don't play as well in front of 70,000. So you got to find out in September who is not overwhelmed with having to play on Saturday in front of a big crowd.
I don't want to mean any disrespect. We kind of glossed over a receiver a little bit. Parker, it was really nice seeing Vanderzee healthy today. Kirk mentioned that he's dealt with some injury stuff too, and we know he was out for a foot issue part of last season. Dayton Howard, those three guys with the laundry list of receivers that were out today, some of that precautionary. Really good to see a couple of big receivers who they ran some stuff today with both of them on the field at the same time, Howard and Vanderzee, and then like Vanami in the slot.
I was going to say one positive tonight was how the tight ends caught the ball.
And Vanami was real complimentary of Michael Burt, and he's very, very high on the big from Clear Lake, Thomas Meyer, and number 85. That's going to be a good group, especially once Ostringa gets back there. I'll make that comment. This shouldn't surprise anybody. I think it's without question the strength of the offense. O-line might end up being that by year's end. You hope. If I was going to be a good offense, it probably has to be. Running back can be really good. I think tight end with Vanami, Ortworth, Ostringa, and then you add in a young Meyer and a Michael Burt, who sounds like just a workhorse. That's a really good group of tight ends. Again.
Yeah, it looks like Ortworth too is back.
Yes,
and
he was out there today.
They made a lot of nice plays today. And talking about Vanami, I happened to be seated just a few rows behind what was obviously the parents of DJ. And it was kind of funny. I told my friend, I said, I'm going to go down and visit I want to introduce myself to Mr. Vanami because I like his son. And I went down, I tapped him on the shoulder, and he automatically saw me and he started sliding over like, you want to sit next to me just because you're a fan, I guess. You can tell him he didn't realize, or I think he thought I wanted to pass by him in the seat. I said, no, Mr. Vanami, you are DJ's dad, right? He said, yes. I said, I used to coach tight ends in Iowa, and I've gotten to know your son. And I just want to congratulate you on having such a fine son. And I've gotten to know him, and I'm going to tell him after the scrimmage today, after practice, I'm looking forward to seeing you play because you will be the next great Iowa tight end. He's not there yet, but he's going to get there. And he better get there, because otherwise he won't be starting for us. Because we got other guys that are also going to play at a high level.
Yeah, Stringa was the top guy, a year ago, and now everybody's like, it's Vanami. That's a good problem to have.
Yeah, very good.
It's a good problem to have. So I'm really excited about the tight end group. Now, O-line is a position we haven't really talked about. Shout out George Nahas. I glossed over him when we were talking about transfers. He was Iowa State. Now he's Iowa. But they're losing a lot with Stevens, Dunker, and Jones all getting drafted. I mean, Peepers, you got to stay healthy. He's locked in to either center or guard. Kirk says if they had a game tomorrow, he told us today it would be Peeper at center.
Mm-hmm.
I think they'd like to play him at guard and play Leighton Jones or Cale Winter at center. But maybe you can mix and match there. If it's Jones, Winter, and Peeper, I'm just throwing three guys out on the interior. On the outside, if it's maybe Doetzler and Lauk, is that a group that you have faith enough in to get the job done?
I think the guys you've already mentioned, Cory, I'm confident right now for game one. Now I'm assuming no catastrophic injuries, obviously. We're going to come up with a good starting five. My concern, I remember in meetings, even as an O-line coach at Iowa, back in the 80s would talk about it sometimes. Nobody has 10 linemen you can win with against quality opponents. You're going to somebody to have 8. And here's why the number is 8. You need a backup center. That's a special position. It's going to be hard for a guy to play guard and center. So in an ideal world, you have at least 8 guys that can play winning football. Backup center would be one extra player. The other 2 extra players would be a swing guy at guard and a swing guy at tackle. So one of those 3 guards, out of those 8 players, one of those 3 guards had to be able to play left and right. It sounds simple, but it's not as simple as what some people might think. Some guys can do it, other guys struggle with it. Maybe they're very, very right-handed. They can't play with their left hand down versus their right hand, whatever. So our goal will be to get to 10, but that's not realistic. If we can just work our way into having 8 guys that can play winning football, we're going to be fine. Last fall, we had 8 guys who could do it.
And I just named, 5?
Yeah.
But to your point, like, these are the other O-linemen on the roster, folks. If you're kind of keeping tabs here, Will Hahn, Michael Myslinski, who would be probably number 6, might end up being the starter, assuming the NCAA gives him
bonus if he can get another year.
Yeah, so this is a weird situation because I think when I checked the online roster, he's not on the roster, but on the roster that Iowa handed out today, he is on the roster, but he's not able to be out there because this NCAA issue. He's trying to get a 6th year. By the way, Tegan Davis, DB, was not with the team today. I asked Kirk post-practice about Tegan. He had a very serious knee injury. I think it was last year, and he's also petitioning for more time. So I didn't think he was out of it. I'd have to go back and look at his eligibility. Whatever the situation is, they're in a holding stage with him, and it's been a difficult road back for Tegan. I remember last year Kirk made a comment that they didn't know they'd get him back because of how serious that issue was. So yeah, Will Hahn, Michael Myslinski, Trevor Locke, I mentioned, Allgaier, legacy kid, number 60, Josh Janowski, Trent Wilson, transfer from James Madison. If you could get him up to speed, he's young, but I understand has some experience and played for a good group, albeit FCS level. Well, I'm sorry, FBS,
right,
but low level FBS.
Yeah.
Yep. And then Will Nolan, who was not out there today, Hudson Parliament, Owen Linder, Bodie McCaslin, Cannon Leonard, who was out today, the Iowa State transfer, George Nahas, and then the freshman Gene Reardon and the freshman Carson Nielsen. You don't normally, count on freshmen, so I guess sort of eliminate Reardon, Nielsen, and Parliament. And then you have a redshirt freshman in Allgaier, who would probably be the next on that list. And as I mentioned, maybe Trent Wilson. But there's a lot of unknowns there up front. And to your point, like, maybe they have 6. If Myslinski comes back, you have 6 you feel pretty good about. But, like, Leighton Jones hasn't proven anything yet. And frankly, Myslinski hasn't proven anything in a game. He's just been around forever and dealt with injuries, and he's finally back. So there are unknowns there, and then the depth is the biggest unknown. On the defensive side, we talked about the lack of depth on the interior. They brought in bodies. So they brought in the kid from Northern Illinois, Lance Ingold. They brought in Bryce Stevenson, 295-pound defensive lineman out of Tampa, Florida, who played a couple of years at Holy Cross. And then they brought in the kid from North Dakota, who is really big at 6'3", 295, and he looks like 315, Emmanuel Olagbaju. We mentioned Devin Kennedy and some other players. Bryce Hawthorne's guy, he didn't play today. We talked to him. It doesn't sound like it's anything serious. I told him, I'm like, hey, I know you. He said, I don't care about pressure. I don't feel pressure, but I acknowledged him. I'm like, hey, you do have pressure because you are one of the only guys that really has experience on the interior. I mean, you lost Graves and Pittman, and I mean, that's a lot of over the last 2 years, and it's just been a lot. And credit to Kelvin Bell and Phil Parker and Jay Neiman. They've done a good job with that group, but anybody stood out. They also lost Brian Allen Jr. to the portal to Vandy in the offseason.
Well, I made that comment early on. It seemed in general that our pass rush was better than our pass pro. So that's a good sign for our D-line that they're getting pretty good surge and they're getting in the backfield. It's not that they're definitely getting stoned on the line of scrimmage. They're penetrating into our backfield and making quarterbacks a little bit uncomfortable. That's the nature of the game.
The answer here to this question, Big Duke Crew says, is Cade Board still on the team? He is not. So some off-field stuff with him, and he is not on the roster anymore. So hopefully that answers your question. And let's see here. I had a couple other notes. So Eli Ozick, the transfer from North Dakota State, I didn't tally his makes today, but I thought he looked pretty good. Had a miss off one of the uprights.
Yeah, there were a few that were not through.
It was a pretty favorable day too. Not a lot of wind.
Yeah.
Yes, not a lot of wind.
Yeah.
He doesn't have the leg of Drew.
No, he reminds you a little bit of Drew. I'm just talking about stature and whatnot. I think he's a little smaller than Drew.
He can't kick from 70 yards.
No. But he did make one for 52 today.
Yep.
And I believe it was a little bit of a slight headwind. He was kicking in the south. I think in general, when you say in general, there's a little bit of wind out of the south
Yes.
today. Yeah.
A little bit.
A little bit, not much.
It's hard to gauge when I didn't look at the flags,
Yeah,
but it's hard to.
swirl.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I thought, at least he gets the ball up. That's, for starters, a lot of guys, of course, just kind of line drive the ball through. Of course, you get some of those blocks. But at least he gets the ball up. And I think even his misses were close. You know, he didn't just horribly kick any of them. They were barely wide, left or right. And of course, he hadn't done it in the game yet. So at best, it's going to be hard to imagine he's going to kick as well as Drew Stevens next fall. Now, maybe he will, but that's not going to be easy to do. Because Drew Stevens last fall was very definitely an above average kicker.
I think punter is going to be an experiment. I think that's going to be a challenge. I'm not saying they're going to be a disaster at punter. Boston Everett's got a good leg. Maybe the Tanner Philpott kid from Simpson can be that guy. I think, given what we're used to, and Dakin was a drop off from Cory, but I think that's going to be
that's a concern.
A concern.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Reminds me of flashback on a comment that Hayden made to Bo one day. Bo's watching our punter, and he had some comment to Hayden about our punter. And Hayden said, "Well, Bo, here's what you failed to realize. We don't plan to punt."
Well, that was a long time ago, Don. But yeah, that's an all-time quote.
We're going to have to punt.
Yeah.
Um,
And by the way, Mason, speaking of LeVar's former group, Mason Woods was in there today and made a play or two. And my understanding is Pat Fitzgerald and LeVar were both in the stands today. Did you see them?
I didn't see the one of them.
Yeah, they were both there because I think it sounds like Michigan State's practice ended a week ago.
Yeah.
So they got to see their kids in Hawkeye uniforms, which is a strange dynamic. But
Very, well, I just tells you something about the respect that their families have for Kirk and his program. Obviously, both those guys are more than happy to have their son as part of our team. And they wouldn't feel that way if they didn't have a high regard for our coaches.
Okay, I think the last position that we really have to cover is DB. I mean, unless you want to talk long snapping. I don't think we covered long snapping formally.
The good news is I didn't really notice the snapping.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's a good place to start.
Right. But yeah, no, as far as the DBs are concerned, I mentioned safety. Deshaun Lee's got to step up to the plate and be the guy. Jalen Watson was out today. He maybe can emerge too, but Deshaun with TJ Hall gone, like Deshaun is the most experienced by far of that group. And if I meant this is a comment I made to him. I asked him about leadership and pressure he feels or doesn't feel. And he accepted the responsibility of, hey, if I'm not a leader, this room is going to suffer. Because he is without question should be, as far as time is concerned, experience, the leader of that, at least the cornerbacks.
Absolutely. Yeah, you're right. TJ last year was our best corner. This year, Deshaun should absolutely feel it's my job to be our best corner this year. And having said that, you heard me say before, Cory, having one good corner is not enough. You better have two, because all they'll do is wear out the other corner. So we need to find two guys that can hold up well against anyone and everyone. And as you know, in this conference, these are some of the best receivers in all of college football. So it's a challenge.
Absolutely. D. Rollison, we appreciate the super chat. Great player, personnel knowledge. Thanks for updating us. Let's go Hawks. We appreciate that super chat from D. Rollison. Aiden wants to ask you mentioned earlier the amount of pressure on Iowa's quarterbacks. He wants to know if that's, in your opinion, more so a result of credit to the defensive line, or is that more so issues on the offensive side?
It's a combination of both. I think it speaks well for our young D linemen. And it's a little bit of a concern about our pass sets on offense. But I have great faith in George Kennedy. George Kennedy, I did it again.
I almost said George Nahas, George Barnett.
George Barnett, George Kennedy. I must think he's a really good actor because I've done that twice now. Well, if George Kennedy's a good actor, then George Barnett's a good offensive line coach. I like George a lot.
Boy, he's gotten a lot of players drafted here the last
Yes,
couple of
he has.
years. Got to give him some credit there, man.
And I've always told this to young coaches. Coaches have asked me, give me good advice. I said, okay, I'll give you some good advice. You're not going to be very effective as a head coach unless you have two things in your favor. And I don't think I've ever told you this, Cory. Maybe I have. But it's simply this. As it relates to your players, you need to be able to say that you are liked and respected by your players. And 1 out of 2 is good enough to get you fired. They got to like you and they got to respect you. And you're not going to earn the respect, of course, unless you can demonstrate to them that you have the capacity to help them to learn how to play this great game. And I think George has been both liked and respected by his players. That's one reason they played at a high level.
And then also this question from JSC Hawk. What about the center position? I saw Cale Winter getting reps. As I mentioned, yeah, I mean, the talk, and I think Kirk brought it up after the practice that Cale's been definitely in the mix. But if they played a game tomorrow, Kirk said it would be Pieper. And so then, excuse me, you're filling in your guard positions. I'm curious, you never coached O-line.
No.
But you've coached a lot of offensive football,
right,
and you've been a head coach. What is that like? What do you think that's like for Iowa when they're trying to figure out, okay, we got 3 guys. I think the tackles are sort of their own thing, right? Like you got to have certain traits to be tackles.
Yeah, those interior 3.
The interior 3 are a little bit more interchangeable.
Right.
But is it fair to say the most important is the center?
It's the more cerebral position, I would say. Again, I've never coached O-line, but let's face it, centers have to be very, very bright and very, very capable of handling last-second decision-making because they're faced with that. And we've had good center play here, and I think that will continue, if only because we have the same guy coaching them that's been coaching them in recent years. And it's gone well.
So what's the besides being able to snap the ball effectively when the quarterback's under center or he's in shotgun? Like what's the criteria for evaluating Pieper versus Jones versus Janowski versus Myslinski and figuring out, okay, who should be the guy at center versus at left guard or right guard? What's the criteria? What are they looking for?
Well, one thing I would say, again, I've never coached a position, but to me, don't overlook the fact it's not a given that the ball is going to be very accurately snapped all day long. There are some centers that aren't that accurate. If they had to snap the ball 70 times, maybe there's good accuracy on 60 of them, but those other 10, we got a Houdini playing quarterback that's able to fill those errant snaps. That's the problem, and it should not be taken for granted. And obviously, ideally, in an ideal world, you're not rhythmic with your snap count. But it all starts, well, if we're going to be non-rhythmic with our snap count, we need to be sure that not just the offensive line, but all players understand that we have to be disciplined enough to never, ever false start. And if you false start a lot, as a coach, you're thinking, I guess we have to be rhythmic with our snap count because we're not dumb enough to stay out of our own way. But the good teams are capable of going on a hard count. Of using a hard count, I should say, to draw someone offside and then snap the ball while they're in the neutral zone. And now you got a free play.
Does your center typically have to have a little bit better athleticism than your guards?
Well, typically, a center, in terms of pass protection, a center typically has help from one guard or the other. And it makes sense. He's got a difficult job to do. He didn't just pick up his hand and pass protect. He's got to snap a football and then get into pass protection.
Yeah.
So he needs help. And now we had some great centers through the years. Talking about a guy like Casey Waitman. And of course, they made great centers in Kirk's years here too, as a head coach. And those guys are good enough where they can snap it. And if they have to block a guy over nose guard over their nose, they can do it. If you have to use what we call fan protection simply means center you're all alone. Guards, you're going to block number one on your side of the ball, wherever he's lined up, and tackles. Well, let me get a hit up nose guard. You're going to block the next man on the line off the center and be the first player. And then the tackle, of course, block the second down lineman. In other words, you're fanning out, so you're blocking 5 down guys, one of which is on your center's nose. And that's difficult. You better have an all-conference center, because if their guy's all-conference and yours is not, then you better not get into fan protection. You better give that center help from one side or the other. And it's a bonus if your center can pass protecting as a nose guard without help. A lot of them simply can't do it. And it's a lot to ask.
Right.
Because you got to snap it and pass protect.
Linderbaum and Logan Jones were exceptions to that rule.
Those guys are exceptional, and they can hold it much better than the average center.
All right, let's go to our phone line. We got a caller here. Thank you for calling Hawkeye Hangout with Coach Don Patterson. Who's on the line?
Hey, Cory, it's Tony. Two things. Number one, I wanted to take a chance to give Don and all the other football listeners an invitation to join the Discord now that football has started up. And then I'll hang up and listen to the answer here. I wanted to know what Don thought about the possibility of the 5-for-5 rule that the NCAA is exploring right now.
Thank you, Tony. Appreciate the call. Yeah, everybody's welcome to join the Discord. Absolutely. Don, you're always welcome in the Discord as well. I actually don't think it'd be as challenging for you as you might think it is. But no, let's address the 5-for-5 proposal that could potentially, I don't know how you would deal with that retroactively. Like, is it possible for, certain college basketball players that have already exhausted their eligibility get another year if they just got done with their 4 years? Regardless, what are your thoughts on the proposed rule?
Well, I guess I don't know enough about the proposed rule. If that simply relates to playing for each of 5 years and then being done.
Potentially.
Does it solve at all the problems and issues we have with transfers?
I don't think it addresses the transfer. It's 5-for-5. It's just 5.
To me, it's got limited.
The fix is limited.
Right.
It
doesn't solve the real problem.
Yeah.
The real problem is guys jumping from one.
Can I ask a question? This is going to sound, we're going to go back to square one. I understand NIL from a perspective of the NCAA. Well, they're incompetent anyways, in my opinion. But the NCAA is limited because of the legal rulings that have been made as to being able to limit, okay, this player can make this much here, this player can make this much here. Why can't the NCAA say that you can only transfer once without sitting out? Am I missing some legal ruling that the Supreme Court or some other level of?
How can that be ruled
how can they
non-constitutional?
That's what I'm saying. Why is that still here? Why can't someone explain to me? Because we don't often talk about the big issues of college football. I guess you lead those to the national pundits, but I don't understand why you can't go back to a rule like that. You can transfer once without sitting out. And then if you want to add a exception to that, like your coach leaves, or that's fine. Or maybe as a graduate, you can transfer again. If we want to make those exceptions, fine.
Yeah.
I don't know why we can't why do we have to have guys transferring 5 times? I mean, seriously.
It's not healthy. It's not good for them either. Because, you've heard me say before, Cory, the beauty of college sports is that you're forced, I'm talking about in the 80s and the 90s in particular, even into the 2000s. But in the old days, you might be second team behind a great player. And maybe he's even same year in class as you are. Well, what's your obligation to us? Be the best damn second team player you can be. Because you're one play away from having to play. If he's injured, you're ready to go.
And again, you make that rule, doesn't it fix to some extent, the tampering. And if a guy can't transfer without sitting out, even if he's being offered money, there's nothing you can pay a guy, but he ain't gonna play.
Right.
So doesn't that kind of fix the tampering and NIL issues to some extent? Maybe that's a juvenile way of looking at it. I'm going to ask Elliot when he hops on here in just a second. But David wants to know how the linebackers look today.
I don't really have a strong opinion.
I don't either.
Seemed to me we didn't really make a concerted effort to run the ball today.
Yes, and Kamari brought that up in the post-practice interview.
We experienced quite a few runs, but the goal was clearly, I think maybe the coaches felt we need to dedicate more time to the throw game than the running game.
Which makes sense.
Yeah.
Right.
Maybe part of that was we need to get more reps on pass pro. Maybe that was part of the reason for it. We don't know exactly what the reasoning might be. Maybe our defensive staff asked the offense, can you challenge us more downfield? We need to see more balls thrown down the field. Whatever the case, it seemed like we maybe ran 40% of the time and threw 60. Whatever, I wasn't counting. But
have heard good things about Cam Buffington. He's a young name that's
right.
been brought up repeatedly here in spring.
I agree. Yep.
So
I think it's just hard to know yet. And in defense of the players, my gosh, the good news is we don't have to play an opponent
until late August. I'm sorry, early September.
Yeah. So we got some time, and you can bet those guys understand we got work to be done every day to get ready for game one, and they're not going to relax very long. They're going to be doing something almost every day of the week to help them to become better at what they do. That's how committed they are.
Midwest Storm Chasing 1 just joined. So if you're to lean one way, who is starting at quarterback day one? Great question. Thank you for the super chat, Midwest Storm Chasing. I saw that was a question from someone else here earlier. I think I gave my prediction earlier. I'll repeat it. It may not be the glamorous prediction, but based on what I have seen, I think Hank Brown it appears that he's got a more consistent, better arm, perhaps a better decision maker, maybe not as big of a quote unquote playmaker, but I also think that the idea of being a playmaker and being a risk taker tend to run synonymously, at least with college players that aren't Pat Mahomes and some of the greats. Like,
it all starts with being a good steward of the football.
It does. And I what I saw today, maybe a little bit more confidence in Hank's ability, even though he's not mobile. And I hate the idea of taking what we saw from Mark last year with his ability to use his legs. I haven't seen that out of Hank. And Hecklinski's got a little bit of that. If I was to predict right now, I would go with Hank Brown. But as you said, a lot of time left until early September.
Yeah, I think it would be unfortunate if you made any kind of final decision now. And the beauty of fall camp, you got a lot of time to work in the month of August. And obviously by then, that you don't want it to be a 3-horse race, but there's nothing wrong with it being a 2-horse race even then. So a lot of reps with the ones, I'm talking about for both quarterbacks, and maybe that means to give them the reps they need, maybe when the twos come out, as an example, if you got 8 snaps for the ones, maybe you go 4 and 4 plays and you're out. I remember one time a quarterback said, "Coach, I can't get in the groove because I only have a few snaps, and then you take me out and put in another quarterback." And I said, "Well, I'll remind you of this. In most situations, we only get 3 downs. And if we don't like what we did on 3 downs, you're over with the bench anyway. So you got to be good on snap 1, snap 2, snap 3. So don't talk to me about not being able to get in the groove, because we don't give you that luxury of getting in the groove. You got to do something heroic on the early downs to make any kind of drive go." So my only point is maybe you split the snaps with the ones, and then when the twos come out, depending on how you're scripting, maybe you split those snaps with the same 2 quarterbacks that you had in with the ones. Maybe they get reps with the ones and the twos. In other words, don't give the third quarterback reps with the twos, just simply give both of them more reps with the twos, so that now you're getting more snaps to be able to make a definitive judgment about one versus the other.
And then Breezy says, hi, Cory. I was at the spring practice. If I could have found you, I would have said hi, but Hecklinski or Brown are both good. I don't know who is better, to be honest. I think that's probably it's if they have two good quarterbacks, that's a good problem to have. I have to see more. I mean, Kirk keeps saying, well, it's probably going to go down to the final hour, and we're really early for him to even make that comment. And I wanted to ask Kirk, like, you would prefer to know, wouldn't you? Like, you would prefer to know right now.
Sure.
You want competition, and you want whoever the backup is to be pushing your starter, but you'd rather not be like, well, we could go either way, I would think, especially at quarterback.
But it's just the same thing as calling election results too early. You want to make sure to get it right.
Yeah.
So if you need to delay your decision, you're wise to do that. And I suspect we won't know who the starter is until maybe game week of game one.
Yeah, and Big Do Crew asked in a slightly different way if we had to choose today. I think Kirk would choose Hank, but that's kind of my reaction.
Now, do you say that, Cory, because of just the flavor you get from?
Yeah, nothing that he has said, just what I have observed and how he's maybe as the head coach, how I feel maybe he's leaned in the past with similar battles at quarterback.
And even I have great faith in Tim's ability to make the right choice. And even in Tim's defense, part of the process involves putting them in a lot of different situations. And not all situations have been covered this spring. Some of those situations have been covered again in August.
And it's not ultimately his choice. Is that fair? I mean, ultimately, if Kirk's like, Tim, we're going Hank. I know maybe you don't feel that he would make that overrule, but at quarterback, isn't it a little different at quarterback? If Kirk is a lot more comfortable with Hank, they're going to go with Hank.
Absolutely.
And
I'll say this. I just put myself in Kirk's shoes. There were times, of course, I mean, if it was a quarterback, they were debating at Western. Incidentally, I sat in on a meeting with their quarterbacks yesterday afternoon. It was really enlightening. Their quarterback coach, incidentally, is their head coach. And he is an outstanding quarterback coach. I was very impressed with the teaching their quarterbacks heard yesterday from Joe Davis. Tim Lester has ever met the same quality coach as Joe Davis. They're both outstanding. And I haven't sat in on a meeting with Tim, but I've sat in. We've had a lot of conversations about quarterback play. And I know he's got a passion for the game and for that position in particular. Of course, he played it well. And, he and I can have really complicated conversations about quarterback play because we both know more about it than the average person.
Big credit to Big Grove Brewery. They're the official craft brewery of the Hawkeyes and of this podcast from the Hawkeye of the Storm. Visit biggrove.com. That's www.biggrove.com to learn about their locations in Des Moines, Solon, Cedar Rapids, Iowa City, now Omaha, Kansas City, also in the works. It's always a great time. Great food, great drink, great company. It's always a great time at Big Grove, and huge Hawkeye fans over at their Iowa City location. Again, visit biggrove.com for more information. And Big Grove's big play of the day was Jackson Native's sideline reception off a throw from Hank Brown. And again, he tight-roped a couple. I thought Hank was the better of the two quarterbacks, at least throwing the football today. And Tim has alluded to maybe Hank's ability to escape that hasn't quite been on display yet. I have no doubt he's a better escape artist than Spencer Petras. Right. But I would guess he's more of the Cade McNamara-esque type of. He's not Mark Gronowski. He's certainly not C.J. Beathard or Jeremy Hecklinski. My guess is he's mobile if necessary, but I really haven't seen that from him.
Yeah.
And the play everybody goes back to when they talk about the little insight to Hank Brown's game at Iowa was the missed screen pass to Washington or to Moulton against Indiana. Probably would have won the game if they complete that. They may have had a touchdown on the play. And you can't judge a guy based on one throw, but I saw better accuracy. I've seen better accuracy out of him. The little glimpses we've had into practice since then. So, but that was Big Grove's big play of the day. At this time, we want to welcome in former Iowa running back superstar, Elliot Clough. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. You didn't play running back at Iowa, but you are a beat. Elliot, you are a beat writer. You do report on Iowa football, but I was getting my guys confused. I confused you with someone else. You're not a former Hawkeye running back superstar, Elliot.
I stopped playing football in 7th grade, guys.
I really do these dumb things just to see the expression on a person's face. So thank you for that. But
I was thinking you had Ronnie Harmon lined up.
yeah, Ronnie Harmon or Elliot Clough, one of the two. So anyways, we got Elliot here. Well, appreciate you being here, Elliot. I know you put in a long day. You've been at a high school event here the last hour, so you're running around, but we appreciate your time. So we'll be brief with you. I wanted to just get a third person's perspective. Don, you were on the fan side. We were both on the media side, Elliot, but just kind of based on what you saw today, paired with Kirk's comments and maybe some player availability, what stood out to you as what you learned the most out of the final spring practice?
Thinking about it a little bit in terms of just the play on the field, I think there are two, probably maybe three guys that, aren't quarterbacks that stick out to me off the top of my head. Just KJ Parker. Two really nice grabs. I've kind of been on the KJ hype train, if you will, since the beginning. I thought he was a steal for Iowa. They originally recruited him as a DB, actually, and then flipped to receiver. I just had heard awesome things about his ball skills, and those were definitely on display today. Obviously, I think he got more run because they didn't have Tony Diaz available, didn't have Evan James available, didn't have Terrence Smith available. Like, you just go down the line as far as receivers who weren't playing, but we think we've got our first real glimpse of those ball skills, at least live with him. And then the catch, you mentioned the completion to Jackson Nave. I thought the most impressive play of the day was the completion to DJ Benami on that opposite end of the end zone, because Hank really you have to drive those throws. You really have to drive it. And I thought it was really good placement and an awesome catch by DJ. But then Marcello Vitti really stuck out to me today. Had some really nice PBUs. He's not afraid to lay the wood either as a DB. Not one of those DBs that only likes to play in coverage or anything like that. But I tuned in with the quarterback conversation, and I think Hank Brown stood out today more because he had more of the explosive plays. But if I'm not incorrect, I think Jeremy had 2 or 3 times as many completions.
Yeah, I saw those stats. I'm going by the eye test. I did see somebody track those stats. I was surprised when I saw that. I
was too. I thought Hank completed more. What I'm going to do is, I'm sure that during the season I do Monday Morning Quarterback. I review every snap, every game for our VIPs. And I'm going to do that as well with the video that I got from today. And just relook at some of the things that during days like this, you're more focused on getting the video than actually watching what's happening. So that'll be productive, at least for me. But I really want to look at the defense a little bit closer, because when they're not tackling, it's just hard to really get a gauge when you're watching it firsthand, really get a gauge of who's having a great day, who's not, unless there's like an interception or something like that. But as far as the quarterback competition goes, what I saw from Hecklinski a couple of times, if I can butt in here, Elliot, because I mentioned earlier, he had the throw where he was falling backwards off his back foot. I'm like, okay, horrible decision. Don't do that. Didn't end up in an interception, but it just didn't look like disciplined, good footwork. Again, I'm nitpicking here, but I'm trying to find things between the lines. I saw him throw at least once behind on a crossing route behind his guy. I thought both guys were pretty accurate, especially early. Like, I thought the ball placement was really impressive on a couple of those throws that were tight roped. A couple of them. There was also the first big catch by KJ. Hank way underthrew it. KJ made a great play on it. Those are some things that on the second look, it's like, oh, well, Hank didn't put it where only KJ could get it. He underthrew it. KJ had to make a good play on it. So things like that stood out in my brief in some of the.
So I think you are. If we were going to ask, if you were going to answer Midwest Storm Chasing's question a minute ago about who wins the quarterback battle, I hear you leaning towards Hecklinski right now. Am I right? Hank, Hank the Tank, and what's is that Hecklinski's nickname? Heck. I always say, hey, you know what I always say? I always say through Heck or Hank Waters. That's going to be the battle. That's going to be the slogan for the rest of the offseason. Through Heck and Hank Waters. But no, I think everybody loves the gunslinger mentality, and he's a playmaker. And you heard me say it before we added you on here, Elliot. I'm just going more so by the history of Kirk Ferentz.
And I think that's fair, because if I was forced to pick one today, not who I want or who I think should be, I would go with who Kirk is going to roll with, and that'd be Hank.
Correct. I agree.
And the thing is too, like what we heard from Tim the other day is that Hank has made the most explosive plays between the two in practice. And he did have some, like the throws today. He had a couple throws where I was like, I didn't know he had that in him. So maybe I think there are a couple things to it. I think that missed throw that he had against Indiana, I think people are writing him off because of one play against the national champion. And that very well could have won the game. You throw him in late in the game. It's just like if he makes that throw, we're having a completely different conversation about Hank Brown right now. And I think people have a little bit of PTSD, if you will, about quarterback play. So they're just ready to make sweeping conclusions with very little information. And Heck is the unknown, fun kind of guy that is the cool choice right now. Does it mean it's the right choice? Not necessarily. I think we know. The thing we know right now is it's between those two. Jimmy Sullivan is not going to be part of that competition in the fall. Trayden Bessinger is not going to be ready. And obviously Fitzgerald is a walk-on. So he's not necessarily going to be part of that conversation. And so everything that Kirk said today about it going to the wire is everything I've heard from behind the scenes too. We heard down to the wire, down to the wire, down to the wire. And I mean, I've asked straight up, people behind the scenes, like if somebody had to start today, who would it be? And the prevailing answer is, I don't know. Not one or the other. I don't know.
Hey, Ontario Thompson just got drafted.
You're kidding.
I'm not kidding. He just got taken by the Falcons. 6th round. Isn't that crazy?
It's something.
That's crazy. Correct me if I'm wrong. Did he do anything at Washington?
I don't know. He's a freak athlete. That's probably what I wouldn't have taken him with a 6th round pick. I wouldn't have picked him. That'd be a flare at best.
I remember, I won't say who, of course, reveal who it was, but I talked to somebody when he left Iowa, and I just asked him, I'm like, what happened there? And the response was basically, hey, kids got to learn how to work.
Good riddance is
maybe he. Okay, yeah. I mean, maybe he got it together. I just don't remember him being some star at Washington. But you're right; he's a freak athlete, and congratulations to former Iowa defensive tackle Ontario Thompson, 6th round draft pick for the Falcons. So, all right, Elliot. Yeah. Was there anything in particular that you took away from Kirk's comments?
Not really. Today felt like a lot of non-answers for the most part. I mean, he just continues to talk highly about or speak highly of Tony Diaz, which is something that is very rare about the wide receiver position with Kirk. I mean, who else has he spoken that highly of? Reese Vanderzee?
Okay, here's let's do a little exercise. We always like to talk depth charts and starters and all this stuff. Let's do a different exercise. And I'm going to give this to you, Elliot, and this will be the last thing, and we'll let you slide because I promised we'd be brief. Let me ask you, I want you to give me the best player on the roster at each position. Okay, just the number one player at each position. Okay, and let's just see, and I want to see kind of your reaction to his comments here. Start with quarterback. Best player right now on the roster.
And we're just going talent?
The best player. The best player. Best college football player. You have to rate talent along with like decision-making, etc.
Yeah, okay. I'd
go Hecklinski. I think I would go Hecklinski. Doesn't mean I think he'd start. I think
experience. It makes me feel like I need to lean Hank.
Okay. Running back.
Kamari Moulton.
Tight end.
TJ Vanami.
Okay. So those are pretty easy. I will say, though, like, with all credit to those guys, they got a really good backup at running back in Phillips, followed by several other really good players. And then they got Addison Estringa and Zach Ortworth, along with Michael Burt and Thomas Meyer. They got some other good players at tight end as well. What's the wins for?
I don't know about Ortworth if he's going to play much this year based on what we saw today. I think Meyer.
He was out there making plays. What didn't you like about Ortworth?
Oh, I saw him catch like 2 passes and they were.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't think they were anything. I mean, they weren't like maybe like 2-yard gains kind of thing. I wasn't.
Well, I'll be intrigued to see how Estringa comes back from injury.
Ortworth like started to not play at the end of the year last year too, so that's a little bit of residual from me. So maybe he does play well in this season and is right up there. I don't want to,
best offensive lineman on the roster.
Trevor Lauk.
Oh, over Cade Peeper.
Yes.
Okay. We could have split it up interior, inside, or interior tackles, and you would have said Lauk and Peeper. Best defensive lineman.
Probably Bryce Hawthorne.
That's a pretty, that group has been, they've gone through some attrition.
Decimated.
They've lost a lot.
Yeah.
They have lost a lot.
If it's not Hawthorne, it's probably Merriweather.
And that is really
yeah.
If that's with all due respect to those guys, they may be great, but that's as little of track record for the top of that group as we've seen in a long time. Best linebacker on the roster.
Cam Buffington. I think he might be Iowa's, other than Zach Lutmer, I think he might be Iowa's best defensive player by the end of the year.
So is that you just reading into the spring, or is that something you had heard even prior to spring?
That's something I heard prior to spring.
Okay.
You mean prior to today, or?
No, I know that Kirk talked about him the other day, and he's had a good spring, but I'm just wondering,
no, it's a collection of the two. It's pre-college eval. It's what he's done so far. I mean, I just keep hearing really, really good things about him, and I think he's in line to be Iowa's next great linebacker.
Best corner.
Deshaun Lee.
Best safety.
Are we throwing Lutmer into the safety?
Yep.
Then Lutmer.
Best cash.
Lutmer,
Who is? Yeah. But you can't play both.
If we're saying Lutmer for,
if we're putting Lutmer at free, who's the cash?
Lutmer will be cash. I'm pretty sure this year. And then Anthony Hawkins will be free safety. Tyler Brown will be strong safety.
Okay.
I could be wrong.
The ideal when they added these guys. I'm like, yeah, that's my ideal, but
right. Who knows? I mean, when we were at practice a couple weeks ago, Brown was just sitting out for bumps and bruises, and Lutmer was as strong, and Marcello Vitti was playing cash. So
Vitti's an interesting one, and I actually had a little mark next to him on my roster. You mentioned him; he was one guy. He is someone I would say Jacob Wallace, maybe residual as well, because he had a really good freshman year behind the scenes. But Vitti was someone that stood out that I didn't expect to stand out. So he's maybe somebody that if for some reason they're just most comfortable sliding Lutmer up to free because they have an option like a Vitti at cash, maybe you can do that, and then may the best safety win at the other spot.
Yeah, I would be nervous about that. I mean, if Hawkins gets hurt or something like that, and they feel like they have to make a move like that, that's one thing. But Lutmer's your best player. Why not put him at arguably your most important position that has to do so many different things? I just think Lutmer's best fit is cash.
Best kicker. We didn't get to see Boer today, so I mean, it's got to be Ozick. But
and he wasn't very good today. So
yeah, he's okay.
Yeah.
There were any number of misses. I know he made a lot of kicks.
Yeah.
He missed maybe 4 more, I think.
we've been spoiled with the sheer power of a Drew Stevens, whereas you could tell it was different the way the ball popped off his foot, right? And these kickers, they just don't have that, and that's not the end of the world by any means. It's just a power difference.
Best punter. I'm assuming you're going to say Boston.
I think I think it's talent for Boston, but Philpott's not bad.
I don't think that group is very strong.
No,
right now.
Special teams is the biggest. Obviously, we mentioned defensive line, but special teams unit wise is the biggest. Who knows what's going to happen? I
got questions. I got questions about safety. I got to see these guys play Big Ten football before I'm like, regardless of who, if Lutmer's back at Cash and we have two new faces at safety, I got to see that mesh.
And fair enough. I do think they have the tangible things to make it work. Yeah. Whether it works in terms of chemistry and all the the in between the ears stuff, that has yet to be seen.
Best long snapper.
Oh, I'm the only one. Ike Speltz. Yeah. He is the cornerstone of the special teams unit right now.
Yeah, he is,
because he's the only one who's been around for a while.
Best return specialist.
That's something we didn't really get to see today. I think punt wise, I think it's Lutmer. Kick return, we just don't know. But I talked to Weegen last year about who he thought would follow him on kick and punt. And kick, he said Braden Jackson and Brevin Dahl.
Braden Jackson's one I keep telling Don. I'm like, I need that kid to play on special teams, because you just feel like, first of all, I remember Caden saying last year at Media Day that he was one of the fastest kids on the roster. And I'm like, he ain't going to play at running back. Not right now, he ain't going to play at running back. So get him on the field. And they need somebody that is, it's going to sound bad, but that's expendable. And Moulton is not expendable.
No.
LJ Phillips probably isn't expendable, because history says they're going to need him a lot because injuries happen. And my final question, best former running back star not named Elliott Clough. I'm kidding, of course. Anything I missed on in particular?
Nothing I can think of.
Okay.
The other name that I think will KJ Parker was back returning punts today. Jackson Nave as well. I don't know if either of them are going to be involved consistently in the return game.
Did Nave return at Iowa Western?
I don't know.
Kicks and punts. Okay, because obviously Weegen had the JUCO experience, and we know how that turned out.
Right. I think a name that would be really fun in the return game is Nathan McNeil. I think he could be really, really good at that.
Why do so few running backs return punts? It seems like. Why is that a vision thing, or are they more natural on returning kicks?
The most difficult skill in football is fielding punts. So it's not easy to be a great fielder of punts. It takes a lot of work. On the other hand, it's not that difficult to fill an end over and kick. So not a difficult assignment to locate kick returners that can field a kick. Much more difficult assignment to find guys that can field punts, especially with 5-second hang time. If you're facing a good punter, that's difficult.
Here, I'll throw a name out for you that this is probably going to blow your socks off. Here's a name of a guy that I'd like to see returning punts. Alex Moda.
That's actually somebody I've spoken to somebody behind the scenes, and they think that he would be really good at that too.
He's a former track guy, pretty good. If I'm recalling, pretty good 100-meter time.
Yep.
And obviously he's played on both sides of the ball. I don't think catching the ball shouldn't be an issue for him as a former receiver.
He's I've heard he and KJ Parker are kind of similar, at least in terms of their physical capabilities, ball skills, that kind of thing. So Moda feels like one of those playmaking types that you want to find a way to get them on the field. And I don't see that happening at corner or safety anytime soon. So possibly returner, that would be interesting too.
Midwest Storm chasing, when Mark got hurt last year, Jeremy was a much better backup than Hank, and who got more reps today as quarterback. Well, they were in different – the only thing I'd have an issue with that comment is they were in very different situations. when Hecklinski came in versus when Hank came in. Very different situations. I don't even remember when Heck came in. When did Heck come in?
Minnesota and Wisconsin.
When they were up by 40. I mean,
Right.
it's apples to oranges, and you're talking about Hank coming in against the best team in the country, trying to close the door. Oh, and by the way, when he threw that bad screen pass, I believe they were tied, right?
Correct.
So
And
it's
like that we have to remember too, Zach Lutmer had an awesome pick that they should have gotten points off of. That field goal from Drew Stevens missed. So that there are so many different things that go into that. It's not black and white like that.
But yeah, who got more reps today at quarterback? I mean, more attempts. I think it was Hecklinski, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So I don't know how much you read into that. Richard wants to know how many wins this year. This is your time for prediction, Elliot.
I need to pull up the schedule. I know they play.
And shout out to Midwest Storm Chasing for this super chat as well. Way too early record prediction. I'll go ahead and throw up the schedule as well, because the schedule, I've talked with Mark about this. The way the schedule is made up, Don, and maybe we can finish up our show with this as well.
Mhm.
It is very much a bear in the first 6 weeks. Like the way it's set up. Let me zoom in here and I'll throw it up on the screen for everybody to see. You get basically your best 3 teams on the schedule before you hit mid-October. So obviously you've got to win your first.
You and I, obviously the biggest competition at the front of the schedule.
You might not actually be wrong.
Jackson Daly's been slinging it. Let me tell you, Southeast Polk product, lefty.
So NIU, got to win that one. You got to beat Iowa State. Could you imagine what a disaster it would be to lose to Iowa State in Jimmy Rogers' first year in Kinnick? So you got to beat them. Got to beat UNI. So you got to go 3-0. But then look at the stretch: at Michigan, home Ohio State, at Washington. Here's what I said to Mark, and this is the frustrating part about it. Is if we're talking about trying to make a college football playoff, because a lot of, this, Elliot, a lot of fans, not all of them, but a lot of them check out once their team is out of the playoff mix. Doesn't mean they don't watch, they just mentally check out. The way the schedule is set up for Iowa is Iowa could be out of the playoff mix by the time you hit your first bye, and that's on Sunday, October 11th. They could theoretically have played their way out very easily, because they're going to be underdogs against Michigan, Ohio State, and Washington.
That's after game 6, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
The other part of it, too, if this team, there is so little that we know about this team. 25% of this team, you know what you're going to get. The Deshaun Lees, the Trevor Lauks, that type of dude. 75% of this team, we have no idea. This could be a really fun year. It could be a really frustrating year for fans.
Well, what's going to be interesting is if you can win one of those 3 games, Elliot, just steal one of them. You go into the bye week, and I don't know, Kirk's maybe not a guy that's going to talk about, he talks about hit the season in segments, right? But you go into that bye week looking at the rest of your schedule saying, we can win the rest of these games. Doesn't mean you will. At Illinois is tough. Wisconsin's still going to be tough because it's Wisconsin, and I think Fickle's playing for his job this year. At Minnesota, they hate Iowa. They're tired of getting their butts beat in. So there's going to be difficult games in there, and Nebraska hates Iowa. But all of these teams that are on the schedule, Iowa's proven recently that they can beat.
No, winnable games.
So they could, if you go 1-2 in that stretch of 3 games, you're very much in the playoff race heading into that game against Minnesota.
The difference, I would say, between this and last year is that last year I thought that team was deserving of a college football playoff spot based on what we saw on the field. I think that, the what ifs were all over that season record. Mark was really good at the end of the year. That was the best quarterback play Iowa's had since probably Beathard. At the end of the year, the way he was playing, this year, I don't think going into the year with college football playoff hopes is realistic. I don't, unless Hank or Heck are really good, and way better than what we saw today because there's so little that is known about this team. I just don't think it's realistic.
I will say to you, Elliot, and this is the last thing I'll say, and I'll let you slide. They will make the playoff through heck or Hank Waters. All right. I can tell you that they'll make the playoff through heck or Hank Waters.
Okay.
And if not, there was George Kennedy.
Yeah, George Kennedy's not coming to play for Iowa football. Okay, so Elliot Clough of I almost said rivals. No, not of rivals.
How dare you? How dare you?
24/7. Yes. Also Prep Hoops, Iowa, and Prep Red Zone Iowa.
You got it.
So check him out. Follow him on X. Elliot, we appreciate you being here. We'll do it again, I'm sure, over on Mark's channel before something else. He's the guy in the off season, so we'll plan on chatting again here soon, hopefully.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me, guys. Good to see you, Coach.
Take care.
All right, folks, wrapping things up here. Couple of things before we officially wrap this show up. One being, thank you to our sponsors, Big Grove and Iowa Floor Covering, for making this show possible. The legend, Coach Don Patterson. I know it's a beautiful day out there, but it's a long day, so we appreciate your time. And fall can't come soon enough. I mean, I love the summer. Don't get me wrong. But my favorite month of the year is August because it's hot. I love the heat, but it's a countdown to football. Yeah. And it'll get here before you know it. I mean, you get through May and June, and all of a sudden you got Big Ten Media Day, media days, and an opportunity to start thinking about the clock turning to August and September. So anything that I'm missing today, Don?
Let me just make this comment about the quarterbacks again. What concerns me about our schedule, games 1, 2, and 3 are all games we should win. And the negative is they're all in Kinnick. I hate that we won't have a road game under our belt before we go to the big house. I'd actually like to have a road game in advance of Michigan, but we don't. And I would go so far as to say with the quarterbacks, it wouldn't shock me, and it wouldn't even bother me if even as we're getting ready to play game 1 or game 2 or even game 3, it wouldn't bother me if we were still evaluating both quarterbacks in the game. That's not what people want to hear. They want to hear, here's our starter. But truthfully, you're not going to learn a lot about them, either one of them, until they line up against Michigan. That's when you learn a lot. It's when they're playing against Michigan. And I did see the spring game last Saturday. I don't know if you saw it. The Michigan spring game.
No.
Well, I made this comment to a coach that'll remain nameless. I said, after watching Underwood again, he's still just good enough to get you beat. That's how I felt about him. The reason I say that, he played the first quarter only, but he played for both the ones and the twos, both teams. He was 3 for 9. Here were 3 guys that were open deep. He was inaccurate with other balls. The 16 completions were all legit. I don't know if anybody could have caught them. And I think Michigan still has issues on offense, from what I saw.
So do you think Iowa can go there and win?
Well, if our defense plays like it did last fall, yeah.
Okay.
But I think we're going to be hard pressed to do that.
Yeah. Thank goodness you get 3 games first, but
yeah,
only 3 games.
But my point is, if we have to wait until game 4 to zero in on one quarterback, I'm okay to do it because we need to see them both under the gun.
Yep.
Now maybe Iowa State will qualify, or maybe Northern Illinois will qualify. We don't know how the game might play out, but it wouldn't bother me at all for them to both play more or less equal snaps in all 3 games. But we got to figure out who the best guy is, and ideally we don't have to know in game 1, 2, or 3. We absolutely need to know for game 4, not to mention game 5.
Lomansky and Jackie, we appreciate both of you, or Jocks and Lomansky, reminding everybody to hit that like button. It does help the show immensely. And I want to go quick fire on a couple of these comments to finish up. The Narrow Way 100 says special teams might not be a strength this year. You got a new signal caller, might be a tough year, or at least to start. Mark Bowen says, or Bowen says, limits on transferring would be against antitrust laws. And he says the NCAA would be colluding to limit chances to move on and thus increase your salary, colluding with the schools. Again, I don't understand. This is why there needs to be structural changes to this whole thing, because
they're student athletes.
it's also
They're not professional athletes.
They're
student athletes.
There's also a facet of, if we're going to make these kids professional athletes, then there ought to be something called a non-compete. Like, if you're going to play for us, you have to sign a non-compete. I don't know. I'm not a lawyer on these things, but I play one on TV. So.
And I agree that we're in this spot because somebody with great vision 20 years ago should have said, let's share the revenue with the players. A full ride is now tuition fees, room and board, books, and $10,000. Everybody gets $10,000. Now nobody has an issue being able to travel back and forth to school. Or maybe mom and dad just need help back home. They can do with the money as they please. They have the $10,000. But the point is, everybody gets the same thing. We don't have all these issues. I mean, even the NFL has a salary cap. College football doesn't have one. How stupid is that?
You're going to be happy with this news. Just in, former Iowa cornerback TJ Hall has been drafted by the New Orleans Saints in the 7th round.
I'm excited for TJ.
So there you go.
And his dad against LSU had a touchdown pass in Baton Rouge. So maybe that's a good sign for TJ. Terrence Hall had success in Baton Rouge. We just need TJ to have success in New Orleans.
Yeah. Your thoughts on how he fits in to the league, just with his length and his acumen from Iowa?
He's got a chance because he's been really well coached by Phil Parker.
Yep.
That's what gives him a chance.
Okay. Let's see here. D. Rollifson, no Aussie punter. Yes, they do have an Aussie punter. His name is Boston Everett. He and Tanner Philpott, the Simpson College transfer, will battle that out. But I was not. There were a couple of punts today. When Boston went up there to kick, I'm thinking not much hang time, not a great ball flight either. What were your thoughts on Everett?
Well, I don't recall seeing anybody that resembled a college punter.
Okay.
Nobody had any punts that reminded me of recent Iowa punts. Last couple of years was significantly different than today.
Yeah, I'm just actually just tweeting out this news about TJ, so just stand by for just a second.
Was that round 6 or 7? Did you say?
7th. Yep. So yeah, what a draft for Iowa players, man. How many is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 guys drafted.
It's almost like one in every round, though.
That's incredible. That's a really impressive draft class. Steeler Check says, "Hi Cory, I have a Steeler podcaster friend. Oh, so she's a Steeler fan. That they're loving Dunker and Weegan draft picks. I got a good friend of mine who I've been texting with as well, and I mean, just the number of Hawkeye players on that roster is amazing. So congratulations to them all. And my guess is this is somebody who might know Jalen Watson or maybe even be related to Jalen Watson.
Mm-hmm.
Big Dog MF11 says, I can't wait till Jalen Watson get back. Y'all sleeping on him, but watch how he pop on the scene this year.
I'm hoping he's popping on the scene.
Are we sleeping on Jalen Watson? He didn't play today. I have nothing to
Yeah.
I think he's one of their 2 best corners, don't you?
Yeah, I mean,
I'm not sleeping on anybody. I look forward to him being back. I just
this
think
might be a good time to remind everyone you can't make the club in the chub. You gotta practice.
You gotta be there. So, and he will be back, and it doesn't sound like anything serious. So, best player in this team could end up being DJ Vanami at tight end. We haven't probably spent enough time talking about him, but he's got a swagger about him. Dude can run, dude can catch, dude can block. and from a former walk-on from Carroll, it's pretty impressive. So
Right now, I go with number 6 on defense.
I think that's a fair choice as well. And let's hope that maybe another player or two emerge on the offensive side, maybe somebody up front on the offensive line. Not that Pieper and Lauk aren't good candidates for that, but they need more. They need more depth there, and certainly quarterback would help. Yeah. Wouldn't it be nice if we looked back in December and said one of their best players was their quarterback?
It would be.
I don't think that's going to happen, but they need it to happen. So, folks, appreciate you all being here. Coach Don Patterson, myself, Cory Brada, we appreciate you for chiming in and making your voice heard this evening. And if you're watching this later, please still hit that like button. If you're listening on Spotify, Apple, Amazon, or any podcast platform, please give us a 5-star rating and review. Be sure to follow our podcast, subscribe on YouTube, consider joining our Discord. Instructions going across the bottom of your screen. And I will be back here very soon, continuing to talk about a transfer portal on the men's and women's hoops side of things, because although the portal window is closed, Jan Jensen and Ben McCollum still doing work to figure out how to finish making up their 26-27 rosters. So we'll continue to follow that right here from the Hawkeye of the Storm. For Coach Patterson, I'm Cory Brada. Enjoy the sunshine, folks. Stay safe as the Storms roll back in on Monday, and we will talk to you soon.